DEI has come for American farmers. With it comes the seeds of Marxist ideology. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. U.S. President Joe Biden has made DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, a priority of his administration. You can tell since Biden himself is a DEI hire. As America's first mummy president, the first time he built back better was the pyramids. Well, DEI has now come for farmers as well. Does this mean they're going to make farmers deprioritize the white eggs and sell more eggs of color? Wait, aren't eggs of color just Easter eggs? The push for DEI is coming from the top of the Farm Credit Administration, or FCA. It's an independent agency of the executive branch. The Inspector General of the FCA wrote in an October 2022 report, the agency needs to identify and reduce potential barriers to diversity and inclusion. And apparently that includes celebrating queer farming. What, is that farming where they exclusively grow food for brunch? The newsletter encourages employees to learn about the experiences of LGBTQ+ people in agriculture and to be proud of the ways the FCA contributes to equitable farming. The newsletter challenges people to take an implicit bias challenge. It also preaches how agriculture in the United States has historically been a white, male-dominated industry, and asks, in what ways are queer farmers different than their straight, cis counterparts? And do those differences have the potential to alter or improve American agriculture as we know it? You know, questions people ask themselves all the time. Whenever I watch an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race, the only thing I'm thinking is, okay, but can these queers grow cauliflower? So why does it matter whether or not the FCA is promoting queer farming? Well, lots of these queer farmers, you'll notice, tend to have quite an interesting way of viewing things such as capitalism. We can see this with FCA's reading recommendations. They provided a link to an article titled, "The Queer Farmers Reimagining American Agriculture." That article quotes queer farmers talking about queering the systems of capitalism. Queer farmers criticize farming in the West as something shaped by oppressive systems, including heteronormative patriarchy, white supremacy, and capitalism. That rhubarb pie is the oppressor trying to keep us down, and not just for a nap after eating a little too much. Then there's the Queer Farmer Network. The network describes itself as a community among queer farmers to interpret racist, capitalist, and heteropatriarchal legacies in agriculture. According to Hannah Beckbill, the network's treasurer and founder of Humble Hands Harvest, land ownership is a product of colonization and genocide and disenfranchisement. And it's not just capitalism they're against. These people also hate white privilege. Except, ironically, most of the people in the network are white. Did I say ironically? I meant exactly as you'd expect. But don't worry, they acknowledge their whiteness and say they aspire to anti-racist practice. That sure is a lot of words to say, we're one of the good ones. Thanks for the stolen land, okay? Sorry, bye. So what makes good anti-racist practice? Or queer farming for the matter? A lot of these queer farmers try to distinguish themselves by saying things along the lines of how their ways of farming are centered around caring, biodiversity, and food security, which don't sound like bad things. But then they go on to say things like how queer farming specifically is not based on exploitation and extraction, but on mutual respect for the land, cooperative ownership free of hierarchy, and equitable pay. Sounds kind of, what should I say, Marxist hipster? Their calls for decolonization and liberation are a pretty big tell. Honestly, it just sounds like a way to charge more for eggs. Cage-free eggs already cost enough, but mutually respected, hierarchy-free, equitable eggs of color, you'd need a loan. And how can queer farmers be good Marxists without hyper-focusing on group identity? Well, they can't. To illustrate that point, look no further than the Organic Farmers Association. It not only promotes anti-racist training, but it recommends organic inspector and certifier affinity spaces. What are affinity spaces, you ask? Why, they are spaces where, very often, people of the same race come together to gather and connect. Because what the U.S. really needs are spaces to separate people of certain races. The association is also big on centering racial justice in the inspection process and prioritizing funding for marginalized people. In other words, prioritize helping certain people based on their group identity. Does that have a place in something like farming? As far as I'm aware, a person's sexuality doesn't affect whether they're a good or bad farmer. However, promoting equity in farming sure has led to some bad things. Look no further than the Holodomor. Stalin seized the land of successful Ukrainian farmers, threw them in jail, and then gave their land to the people in collectivized farms. Turns out they weren't very good at farming. Long story short, millions starved to death. So when the queer farming network talks about land ownership being a product of colonization and genocide, it almost sounds like they want some Soviet or Maoist-style land redistribution. Of course, maybe I just need to take an implicit bias challenge. I have such negative views of Marxism. Here at America Uncovered, we do our best to present the facts and let you draw your own conclusions. But I can't afford to keep making the show without your support. On the crowdfunding website, patreon.com/AmericaUncovered. All it takes is $1 an episode. I usually make about 12 episodes a month, but if that's too much for you, you can always set a monthly limit. You can even help me continue to uncover America for just $1 a month. Just click on this orange button to support the show. And if you didn't know, I also talk about news and politics through the lens of gaming on my new show, Deep Thoughts While Gaming. Click on this video about how Marxist ideology is infecting the gaming industry through DEI consultancy groups like Sweet Baby Inc. Let me know what you think. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.